Hello BookTube, I am back, and actually I decided that I was going to do a separate review of one of the books I read this month. I am going to do a July wrap-up momentarily, but first I wanted to talk a little bit about a book I read for Booktubeathon. As many people asked me about it, and it's called The Witness Wore Red, the 19th Wife Who Brought the Polygamous Cult Leaders to Justice by Rebecca Musser with Bridget Cook. Now, I did want to point out that while I read this, here are some of the other books about this particular topic, the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This particular brand of the FLDS is run by Warren Jeffs. There is another branch in Bountiful which is run by the Blackmores, Winston Blackmore and his offshoots. They fell out with the Jeffs family shortly after Rulon died. There's a whole schmozzle. These, of course, are very separate from the current Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which are Mormons as we know them today. Mormons disavowed polygamy during the time of Brigham Young. John Smith, the first prophet, historically, he ruled that polygamy was okay and made it a part of their edicts, and subsequently, during a time of tumultuousness and pressure from the government for Utah, they ended up reversing that. However, to this day, there is still the belief of the Celestial Kingdom, and that, well, of course, the Celestial Kingdom, but the belief that to get there you have to have at least 3 wives. So that is quite rampant amongst the FLDS. So the other books that I've read on the topic are Prophet's Prey by Sam Bauer with a foreword by John Krakauer. This was turned into a film, I believe. I have not seen the film. It's his 7-year investigation into Warren Jeffs and the Fundamentalist Church of Latter-day Saints. It's a very good read. Then I read Stolen Innocence, My Story of Growing Up in a Polygamous Sect, Becoming a Teenage Bride, and Breaking Free of Warren Jeffs by Alyssa Wall with Lisa Pulitzer. This girl is actually a child of a sister wife of this girl. So they tie in together, and actually a lot of the stuff in here ends up in here as well. The difference being her court case against Warren Jeffs got thrown out, I believe, and subsequently this is the case that broke. The other one I've read, which I absolutely adored, was Under the Banner of Heaven by John Krakauer. This one is a story of violent faith. It's about, it has a lot of history of Mormon fundamentalism, which is why I really enjoyed it, but at the root of it, it's a story about a pair of brothers who commit a murder, believing they are biblically forced to do it. So, having read these 3 books and going into this book, I had a lot of background knowledge, so I'm not sure if that sways me as to where to go with the book. It was very well written. I will say that the combination of Bridget Cook and Rebecca Musser really works. I found that she did not focus very much on her life after. She did focus on it a little bit, but only in so much as to say that during the trial, subsequently, her entire marriage broke down. Sorry, my bangs are like sticking to my face. It's really warm up. So, from this person, this biography, this autobiography, if you will, we get to find out how she was raised, her family. Subsequently, her father designed the gasket or whatever that ended up being sold to NASA for space shuttles. So he had a lot of money, and he became high in the church, in the FLDS, when Rulon was still running it, or Uncle Roy prior to Rulon. And so he had a lot of clout. He ended up gaining 2 wives. There was a lot of abuse on behalf of the other wife, not her direct mother, but her other mother, the sister wife, who was very abusive towards her and her siblings. So we see a lot of that. We see the birth of the Alta Academy, which is where Warren Jeffs rose to power. Of course, how his father Rulon, his health declined. He had a stroke. Subsequently, Warren manipulating the background to do that thing, to take over. we get a lot of that in this book. We get a lot of first-hand accounts of what was going on with her sisters, with her family, with her mother, how it affected her, relationships with other people, and how she couldn't talk to other boys or be around boys, how Warren Jeffs targeted her for many reasons, and went after her marriage to Rulon, and really how disgusting it was to be a youngster married to a 70-something-year-old man. And really how perverse they were behind closed doors, and how they were completely different from what they were preaching on Sunday when they were at home, how they would, hold fasts, and subsequently they would go out for steak. Things like that. We get a lot of that in here. We get how she ran away, her subsequent children, the man she ran away with, the dissolving of that marriage, her going through trial, how trial affected her, how being out in the real world affected her, and how she just kind of pushed through and persevered in the end to take down Warren Jeffs. It's a good book. It's a really good book. It is not mired in a lot of the... She doesn't make apologies for the faith. I did find, when reading Stolen Innocence, that she had come to a new form of Christianity, and so it was very hard for her to turn her back on Mormonism and the Bible itself. So she struggled with that, and she also spent a lot of time making apology for the people who perpetrated things, or tried to get them off mentally in terms of like, we didn't know, or they didn't know, or they wouldn't have known, and all of this, even while she's, having a miscarriage in Canada and no one cares about her and her husband's been raping her. So that one is a little more religious. This one has very little religion in it. It talks about how their church is set up and what their belief structure is. But if you're looking for an understanding of the structures of the Church of FLDS and the history of the FLDS, then go with Under the Banner of Heaven, because that has the most history. Now, if you're looking for more of an indictment and more of how the police and everything came to go against Warren Jeffs and how hard that was to track him and everything, and actual transcripts, go with Prophet's Prey. But if you're into autobiographies and biographies and you want to hear the true story of this woman and how, okay, so there's a picture, and that is her with her wives. He went on to have 60 plus wives, and so she's the one, they've highlighted her in red. She would have been wearing white at the time, but she was one of many. By the time she married him, he was impotent, so he was no longer having children. So that was a blessing for her. However, the ones who did have children with him found that really hard. She wore red because red became outlawed during the time of Warren Jeffs. When Warren Jeffs took over, he made a lot of things bad, like he killed everyone's dogs, and I'm sorry, anybody who kills an animal, no, we're done. But she goes through how, they couldn't wear red, boys are supposed to be snakes and stuff. I found that for this one, it was a really good read. It depends on what you're looking for with the FLDS. If you're looking for more of an introduction, you could really start with any of these, because they all kind of play off each other. I would like to think that the co-writer, because Rebecca Musser is not a writer, clearly. She is actually a real estate professional now, I believe in Oregon. She gave the writer enough to work with and work on, and it's very helpful. At the end, by the ending chapters, like last half here, I did find that there was a bit of focus on the dissolution of her current marriage, and while I thought originally while reading it, why do I even care? I'm reading for the FLDS portion. It's interesting because her husband also left the FLDS, and he had taken a lot of the mindset of it and put it into their relationship, and that is what ultimately caused the problems in the dissolution. So looking back now that I've finished it and it's been a day or two, that actually is an interesting point to put in there, because that is how it directly affects people when they leave. So yeah, I finished The Witness Wore Red, and I think that if you're looking for books and biographies from ex-FLDS members, you should check it out.